today.
Okay.
I
All
want to
right.
first of all congratulate you. Wow. How old are you again?
83.
Come on. The people on this call, half your age, they're just scared to death to do what you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about inspiration. Why are you doing this anyways? Tell me.
Okay, why I did it is because I have no children. I have cats. Taxes. So when I visited these shows to see something that I like, maybe it will help. And I came across Ferry. It really, really attracted me. I went in, I saw all the products, the bags, the jewelry. But the thing that attracted me most was this wheel to spin. And I spun the wheel and won the business. That was the Saturday evening. So the lady who took me around said, we have a meeting in Richmond Hill on Wednesday nights. I said, definitely I'll be there. And I came. I listened, I asked the question, and the main thing was about the taxes. They said, you join the business, it's a tax write-off, plus everything you do in there will go to your taxes and relieve you. Guess what? It was right. I joined. Since then, I paid my share of taxes, but I got refunds. That never happened before. I got refunds. Thank you, GWT Opulence Global. You're true to your word. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And our CEO, I love you. You are really and truly a man with a heart of gold. You look out for everyone, and we are looking out for you too.
Appreciate that, sweetheart. Thank you so much. So let's get started. Let's get started. What I'm going to do, we're going to watch a video. Guess what? It's movie night, folks. It's movie night of forensic. We're going to be doing a lot of things over the next, moving forward, actually. Part of our education to you is the financial system. I gave a few months ago, I gave you a warning about my 16 predictions. We've done it here. We've done it, I've done posts about it on Instagram about it, and on Facebook and so forth. We've talked about it several times. And last year and a half, I've been talking about the world financial systems. So we went into exits. And at the time, you didn't know why we're doing this. Along the way, you may not know today why we're doing this. But I've told you along the way, hang on, you'll know. You'll know. And we're about 10 years ahead of our competition on this, but it won't take that long. And over the next year, we're going to find a lot of the competition closing down because of what's coming. And because they'll be completely derailed of what the financial system is bringing. So, but because last 25 years, all I've done is educate myself. And most importantly, I've always been really suspicious of what the government does. I've got 25 years of my life. So I keep a close eye on them because government will always tell you in advance what they're doing, except no one pays attention. They actually tell you, on the podium, the president that says, hey, we got a cyber attack coming, the biggest thing. That means something big is coming because they need a reason. The government always need a catastrophe to change laws. They always need a disaster to do something they want to do. You want to push out a digital ID on people, then you need a pandemic. So if you want to change the world securities, then you need a terrorist bombing. So this is what the government does. They always need but it's not new, by the way. I mean, Hitler used to put churches on fire and then say the Jewish people did it. Again, he needed a reason to do what he did. The heinous acts that he did. It's before him. You're going back hundreds of years. I mean, thousands of years. The kings have always, if they want to do something, the Romans, Caesar used to do stuff like this. So if you want more power, you need a reason for it. And the government will find a reason to do it. And right now, based on the Senate. It's out there. The reports are out there. The world's talking about it. It's all over the YouTube. They have this thing called Agenda 2030. And that Agenda 2030, United Nations has 17 SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. And I've read them. It's scary. Absolutely scary what they want to do. You're not going to like any of it. And this is a global thing, not only from a health-wise. Actually, on this Monday, don't miss the protocol, because I'm going to show you another video and what's going to happen in your country with your healthcare. And I'm telling you, it's going to give you nightmares. It's going to give you nightmares. I'm not doing this to scare you. I'm telling you why we make the decisions that we make and what we're doing to protect you, your family, from a lot of the stuff that's coming. So Einstein said, in the midst of hardship lies an opportunity. That's me. Every time a disastrous news hits out, then I look at it and go, where's the opportunity here? Because there's always going to be people. During the pandemic, 103 new billionaires were created. Billionaires. New. We're not talking about Bill Gates that paid 21 billion extra. New. So, yet tens of millions of businesses closed down and they never reopened. So, we're not going to be a victim. I realized years ago, and it's a completely different concept than anyone else, and I'm a little bit wired differently. I said, if the minute you realize that this is someone else's world and you're just living in it, this is the opposite of what the government is always trying to tell you. No, it's all about the people. It's about the people. The moment you realize this is someone else's world, because we're not involved in all those decisions, and you're just living in it, that's when you actually find freedom. Because in Canada, for example, 10 million people got blindfolded, kicked in the teeth, who thought they had freedom. They realized they can't even go to a restaurant to eat with their kids anymore. They can't get on the bus, get on a plane, leave the country. So, I mean, this stuff, and I'm going to keep on reminding because people have very short memories. But what's the doors are open, they're just a new path to the next level, right? So other things are coming. So I sit there and say, okay, how do we protect ourselves? And then when I say ourselves, I don't look at just my family. I can always worry about my family, but no, to me, Opulence is my family. Whoever's in it, whatever I want for my family, I want for Opulence. And that's the extended family, it's our community, it's our nation. And I know we're going to keep on building this community, this nation. We're going to be the blue lagoon in the red infested ocean. That's my job, to sit there as much as we can defend this against this. And so what you're going to see today is a very scary thing. I've been talking to you about CBDC for a while. The cash money that you have in your country, Visa, MasterCard that you're using, guess what? It's going away. You're going to have MasterCard and Visa, but it's not going to work the same way that you use it today. And the cash money that you're going to have, it's going cashless. It's going to what's called CBDC, which stands for Central Bank Digital Currency. So how is that different from using your card today, digital today? Is that the biggest difference is the CBDC that is coming to your neighborhood is programmable money. Right now, the money that you have, it's not programmable. Use your MasterCard, Visa, cash, whatever you want, gas station, whatever. When CBDC comes, that won't be the case anymore. The government decides how you spend, how you earn, how you save your money, invest, everything. So government decides, well, we are in a recession and you can only spend your money on these things, then that's all you can spend your money on. This stuff that's the whole thing about CBDC. So, but this has already been in play for about 20 years. China already has a version of this. Their actual CBDC is being released this year. So part of the reason why the government is doing this is that if you're the government, you don't want your population take the money that they have and go on a vacation, spend in Mexico, right? You want them to spend the money inside the country because it helps the economy and creates jobs and makes the government look good. You know, they don't want you to take your money and go buy a property somewhere else. They want you to spend it in the country. They don't want you reinvesting into a Picasso or those classic cars or the Bitcoin. They don't want you to do that because that's just you. They want you to invest it, or buy it, or sell it in things that helps the full economy. And of course, they want full control of everything that you're doing. So this stuff I've been researching because first came over a couple of years ago. I've talked about it in this call many, many times, not in depth, but because, you know, why are we doing this? Well, because on the 28th, finally, after a year and a half of development, I'm going to share with you our new payment system, brand new payment system that's detached from the rest of the banking system. I think we may be the only company in the world that has that because it's not based on the fiat system. Second, I'm going to tell you the rollout of a utility token and payment system designer token, which is Exit. So once you watch what's going on with this, with your country, with your money, I'm going to play a video. It's 27 minutes. So it's movie night. Take some notes. Then I'm going to tell you why Exit is your lifesaver. Let's get started. Tell me sound check. How's the sound check here?
A global CBDC system where all your assets are tokenized on a centralized government blockchain.
Okay, so how's the sound? Good. All right. So let me share a screen so you guys can see. Whiteboard, no, I need to share a screen. All right, so what we need to do, our fearless hostess, you need to make me, I'm a host now. Okay. Why can't I? Whiteboard reaction. Oh, there. There we go. We got this. If I can do this, all of you guys can do this. All right. Can you guys see? Let me go to here. Chat. You guys can see the screen? Show some thumbs up. Show me some reaction. You got your popcorn ready? Excited? Because this night, what I'm going to show you is coming to your neighborhood. This is your horror movie, you know. And but don't worry, we got you. We'll talk about it at the end. Let's go.
A global CBDC system where all your assets are tokenized on a centralized government blockchain, meaning you own nothing. This is what the future of the financial system looks like, according to a recent report by the Bank for International Settlements, the Bank for Central Banks. Now, this is not the first time that they've published such a scary study, but it comes at a time when
Okay, if you don't understand a lot of this stuff, don't worry about it, because we'll talk about it afterwards. But this, what he's talking about, Fed Now, and the department that he's talking about, this is the highest level of the government globally. Like, this is not your local bank. These are the regulators of the world. They put out a report about CBDC, what they're going to implement globally, because already, you know, FIS controls the global banking already for the last 50 years. This them saying what they're going to do next, which is every country, your country, my country, every country. So this is not something that's not going to affect you. It's already coming. If it's not already there, it's already coming. It's on its way. Let's go.
banks and governments are rushing to roll out their central bank digital currencies and so-called fast payment systems. That's why today I'm going to summarize this report and tell you what you can do to protect yourself from the future financial system that governments and central banks seem to be planning. The report I'll be summarizing today is titled, quote, Blueprint for the Future Monetary System, Improving the Old, Enabling the New. It's the third part of a much larger annual economic report published by the Bank for International Settlements, or BIS, in late June, and I'll leave a link to the full document in the description. Now, some of you might remember that we summarized this section of the BIS's annual economic report last year too. Back then, BIS head of research Hyun Song-shin was bombarded with questions about why these dystopian technologies are needed during a post-report press conference, press that the BIS had invited. You might recall that Hyun had revealed that these fast payment systems being rolled out around the world, such as FedNow in the US, are not all that different from CBDCs. This was just one of many bombshells dropped by Hyun during the question period. We suspect that he revealed a bit too much. That's because this year's press conference was very different. Hyun stuck to the script, which was that tokenization would make it possible to code regulatory compliance into every digital asset. He discussed the prospect of a global CBDC ledger where all assets will be tokenized, including stocks and real estate. In other words, every single asset in existence would be turned into a token that exists on a private, permissioned, and centralized blockchain controlled by central banks and governments around the world. As I mentioned in the introduction, you will literally own nothing in this kind of system. That's because the central banks and governments will ultimately have the power to determine which transactions you can or can't make, which things you can or can't sell, or turn off your ownership of certain assets. If you don't have physical proof of ownership, they could say you never owned them. Now, this begs the question of how close we are to such a system. As it so happens, this was the only question that Hyun was able to answer directly. His response, quote, we are closer than we think because CBDCs are being rolled out around the world. All that's missing is a global settlement medium. If you're wondering how close CBDCs are to becoming a reality in your country, be sure to check out our recent CBDC update using the link in the description. Now, as for the report itself, it begins with a brief introduction, wherein its authors explain that an evolution in society has resulted in an evolution in money. They discuss the digitization of the financial system that occurred a few decades ago and claim that the next step in its evolution is tokenization. The report's authors define tokenization as, quote, the process of representing claims digitally on a programmable platform. They put programmable in italics because it's obviously important. Now, programmability means that transactions can be automatically controlled by centralized authorities. The authors acknowledge that crypto has pioneered the principle of programmability, but argue that it is a, quote, flawed system that couldn't possibly play the role of money. They say this is because money requires trust, and the only way to create this, quote, anchor of trust is via a central bank. For context, crypto is trustless, meaning that you don't have to trust anyone. This value proposition is becoming more apparent in an age where centralized institutions are becoming less trustworthy. After all, they consist of corruptible people. On the other hand, cryptos consist of immutable computer code. The authors then go on to reiterate that the only reason why money works as well as it does is because of the trust that central banks create, a truly delusional view. They even seem to imply that the only reason why money doesn't work well sometimes is because of the digital silos created by commercial entities. Naturally, the authors say there's only one solution to this financial fragmentation, and that's a, quote, unified ledger, which will harness, quote, the full benefits of tokenization while leveraging the supposedly unparalleled trust that individuals and institutions have in central banks. In other words, the only solution to the shortcomings of money is to put the entire financial system on a single centralized blockchain that's controlled by the central banks. The rules programmed into the tokenized assets on this blockchain will presumably be decided by governments and lobbyists, of course. Now, the authors explain that having, quote, everything in one place also means that regulators will be able to keep track of every single transaction, complete surveillance. If that wasn't frustrating enough, the authors also discuss the possibility of having multiple unified ledgers that are application specific. This is frustrating because the crypto industry basically consists of application-specific chains, and crypto projects in some ecosystems, such as Cosmos, explicitly design themselves to be application-specific. And that reminds me, Hyun was asked in the press conference if public blockchains could play a role. He said no. As a cherry on top, the report's authors call on the central banks to work closely with the private sector to implement this de facto digital prison in a way that's mutually beneficial. When you remember that the megabanks technically own the central banks already, you
Okay, so I know he's using a lot of technical words. Don't worry about that. But look what he said at the end. He called this digital prison. I think we all understand that. We don't need to understand the technical side of this. We just have to understand what the result is. And that's all of us being in prison, asking for permission. For the first time in human history, you'll be asking for permission on how to use your salary, your business income, your government income. You'll be asking permission on how to use it.
But this is already happening. Now, in the second part of the report, the authors dive deeper into the topic of tokenization. They start by explaining that tokens consist of information and rules, and confirm that, quote, tokens can be customized to meet specific user or regulatory requirements that apply to individual assets. They then discuss concepts that are cornerstones of crypto, like composability and smart contracts. On that note, if you're not sure how cryptos differ from CBDCs, check out our video about that using the link in the description. Spoiler, one is built for freedom, the other is built for control. Now, the authors then provide a perfect example of what I mean. When listing potential use cases for tokenization, they note, quote, built-in contingencies that depend on the actions of other depositors alter the incentives of depositors to be a first mover in a bank run setting. Plain English translation, they will make it impossible to pull your money out of the bank if there's a problem. Now, the authors then pivot to CBDCs and explain that tokenized asset ecosystems require a point of reference for price, such as fiat currencies. They note that stablecoins cannot play this role. The only solution is a CBDC. This means that CBDCs must exist on the same blockchain as tokenized assets. Interestingly, the authors seem to imply that wholesale CBDCs will be used for this. They also seem to imply that retail CBDCs will replace cash, since they say that they are, quote, digital representations of physical cash. For reference, most of these reports call retail CBDCs central bank liabilities, not cash. And for those unfamiliar, wholesale CBDCs are meant to be used by select individuals and institutions, whereas retail CBDCs are meant to be used by everyone else. In other words, there will be two CBDC systems, one for the elites and one for us. Odd that they would choose such a system for themselves. Anyways, if that wasn't crazy enough, the authors seem to imply that central banks should be given the power to convert every other form of digital money into a CBDC to, quote, support singleness. This is additional confirmation that central banks will control your assets in this kind of system. As expected, the authors note stablecoins as one form of alternative digital money. What's not expected, however, is that they include bank deposits as another alternative digital money. As you might have guessed, the authors insist that all bank deposits become tokenized to ensure singleness. Some folks at the BIS clearly aren't happy in their relationships. Anyway, lame jokes aside, the authors spend lots of time trying to justify why all bank deposits should be tokenized and controlled by central banks. They then return to the topic of stablecoins and provide a detailed timeline of stablecoin depeggings during Terra's collapse last year and the recent banking crisis. Besides the depeg risk, the authors take issue with the fact that most stablecoins are backed by government debt. They state that the government debt holdings of stablecoin issuers reduce, quote, the overall supply of liquid assets that are available for other purposes. Now, this is more significant than you might think because it underscores the angle that these central banks are coming from. Stablecoin issuers are hoarding liquid assets that should be used for other purposes. What's to stop them from saying the same about you making purchases they don't like? Anyway, to top it all off, the authors reiterate that tokenized bank deposits are the way to go because, unlike stablecoins, they would have strict KYC and AML at every step of the process. You would not be able to move a single cent without regulatory approval and oversight. And we're not even halfway through the report. The third part of the report pertains to interoperability, which is yet another cornerstone of the crypto industry. The authors start by saying that the potential of tokenization ultimately depends on how interoperable systems are. The BIS's solution to interoperability is to create one global unified ledger. Now, to be fair, the authors acknowledge that other ledgers, quote, could coexist with the global unified ledger. Even then, the authors envision a scenario where these ledgers, quote, merge and overlap until they become a part of the global unified ledger. It sounds like something out of a sci-fi novel, but it's not. Then, in an associated information box, the authors explain that, quote, on the road to a unified ledger, an intermediate solution would be to integrate legacy systems and existing infrastructures with new programmable platforms through application programming interfaces or APIs. Watch out for that. Now, if you're wondering what that looks like, the authors are kind enough to provide an infographic of what appears to be the 3 stages from today's financial system to the financial system of the future. All I see is an extremely centralized system that's inherently unstable and will inevitably result in collapse. The authors then explain the 2 aspects of a unified ledger. The first is that it, quote, combines all the components needed to complete a transaction on one platform. And the second is that it, quote, features money and assets as executable objects, meaning they can be exchanged entirely on-chain. They provide an even more detailed infographic of what a unified ledger would look like and make a bold claim. Some transactions will preserve privacy. This is a bold claim because the definition of privacy used by central banks typically means that they see everything while the private sector sees nothing. In this case, however, the authors seem to be serious, and this could explain why they see the unified ledger as being oriented towards wholesale CBDC users. Newsflash, institutions and the elites want financial privacy more than anyone else. This is why we believe privacy is inevitable in crypto, assuming the governments and central banks don't destroy it, of course. In any case, the authors talk about another crypto cornerstone, and that's atomic swaps. In the context of a global unified ledger, this means swapping wholesale CBDCs for other assets. Note that if everything trades against the same CBDC, then investment diversification technically won't exist. The silver lining is that it seems that there will be multiple CBDCs because foreign exchange still exists in the future financial system the BIS envisions. The only difference is that all foreign currencies are digitized as CBDCs, and they all trade on the same global ledger. What could possibly go wrong? The authors then return to the topic of stopping bank runs and reveal that this would be done with smart contracts on a global unified ledger. They also claim that this same global unified ledger could be used for supply chain solutions and a whole slew of other use cases. So not only will the global unified ledger do everything, but it'll store all the world's data too. The authors note that this data would be used to determine if you're allowed to get a loan or if you're entitled to more universal basic income. Not actually, but it's the outcome of the ideas in the text, believe me. And last but not least, this data could be used to ensure unparalleled compliance with KYC and AML at every turn. Now, to ensure these and other use cases, the data on the global unified ledger will be shared with the appropriate institutions, likely central banks, governments, regulators, and a few undocumented entities. And did I mention that the global unified ledger can be used in so-called green finance? You will be able to keep track of how much carbon is being reduced because of your investments. Say, maybe the carbon credits you're allocated will be tracked, including how you're spending this carbon allocation. You can learn more about the upcoming individual carbon credit scores using the link in the description. Anywho, the fourth part of the report is about the, quote, guiding principles of the global unified ledger. The authors start by saying that everything should be integrated with the global unified ledger so that the central banks can ensure singleness. Seriously, they say any application should integrate. Regarding scope, meanwhile, the authors reiterate that other ledgers may coexist with the global one, but should eventually become a part of the financial hive mind. They note that the global unified ledger must abide by the principles for financial market infrastructures laid out by the BIS in a different report. Now, this other report is almost 200 pages long, and unfortunately, we didn't have time to go through it in its entirety. Fortunately, though, the key takeaways are clear. It essentially consists of 24 principles, which all types of financial market infrastructure should abide by. For once, nothing stuck out as concerning or dystopian. Makes a nice change. Now, regarding the governance of the global unified ledger, the authors effectively say that the central banks will be in control, but financial institutions in the private sector will have some input too, as will the governments and their regulators. Regarding financial inclusion, the authors don't say much. They just say that the entire financial system will eventually exist on this global unified ledger, which logically means that everyone will be a part of it, whether they like it or not. The best kind of inclusion, if you will. Regarding economic incentives, the authors admit that it's possible that not everyone will want to become a part of the global unified ledger. They cite over-the-counter or OTC trading as one example. In other words, some people will prefer to trade directly with each other outside of the system. Here is where things get scary. Quote, the experience from the introduction of fast payment systems suggests that mandating participation while simultaneously providing an infrastructure that allows for private sector innovation can be key to ensuring adoption. If you watched our recent video about FedNow, you'll know that Fed officials seem to imply that banks would eventually be obligated to use FedNow for all of their transactions. This quote from the BIS confirms that this is what the Fed officials are implying. We will force everyone into our CBDC system. Regarding privacy, the authors likewise admit that privacy concerns could be a hurdle to adoption, particularly to institutions, hence why privacy should be preserved. The authors claim that only commercial banks and users will see the sensitive information related to transactions. I doubt it. To be fair, the authors do provide a table of potential privacy solutions. The problem is that their explanation of these solutions is subpar, suggesting that they just Googled privacy solutions and copy and pasted the information into the report. It would honestly not surprise me in the slightest. For what it's worth, though, the authors discuss the possibility of allowing users to verifiably delete their data from the global unified ledger after some period of time, which is what some existing regulations allow. Again, I'm skeptical as to how available this option will really be, and if it will be for retail or only for institutions. Meanwhile, regarding cybersecurity, the authors admit that a cyber attack on or exploit of the global unified ledger would be absolutely devastating. They even admit that the larger and more centralized a system is, the more vulnerable it becomes to cyber attacks and exploits. That's why the authors pinky promise that the global unified ledger will have the highest level of cybersecurity so that it's impervious to the global cyber attack the World Economic Forum keeps warning about. No, that's not what they said, but yes, the WEF has been warning about a global cyber attack. More about that in the description. Anyhow, the authors conclude by tacitly admitting that the reason why the central banks want everything to happen on their global unified ledger is because they're terrified of new financial technologies that seek to replace them. FYI, this is what cryptocurrency is supposed to do. Speaking of which, the authors go out of their way to slam the shortcomings of the crypto industry and claim that only central banks can ensure the singleness of money. They say that the only thing standing in the way of their utopian vision is those pesky, quote, needs and constraints of sovereign countries. And finally, the authors state that, quote, this journey requires a shift in emphasis from individual experimentation to joint innovation. Public-private collaboration is essential to develop technological solutions, establish common platforms, and ensure proper oversight and supervision. Translation, please stop experimenting with financial technologies and work with us because we don't want to be replaced. So, it's fair to say that we want no part in the dystopian financial system the BIS and its constituents want to create. So, how can you protect yourself and your assets from the dystopian financial system that the BIS is shamelessly trying to roll out? Well, the honest answer is that you may not have to protect yourself at all because they may not succeed in creating a global unified ledger. Recent history has shown that trying to force the global population to comply with something doesn't work so well. That's because when you force something that you claim is good, it kind of becomes clear that it's not. Even so, this doesn't mean that the BIS won't try, and it's possible that they will succeed. That's because the precursors to this global unified ledger are already being voluntarily adopted around the world. I'm referring to the so-called fast payment systems that already exist in many countries, the first of which was introduced way back in 2009 by the UK. As I've mentioned in other videos about CBDCs, they will likely be benign and even beneficial when they're first introduced. Fast payment systems appear to be the benign and beneficial predecessors to CBDCs. Everyone is adopting them because they're convenient, without knowing what's coming next. As such, the first step to protecting yourself and your assets is to make sure you're not passively using these proto-CBDC systems. Now, this is much easier said than done, as it requires a lot of research and due diligence, but it's something that you should allocate time for if you're serious about avoiding CBDCs. The second step is to ask yourself which assets offer the best hedges against global unified ledgers and the like. Cryptocurrencies and precious metals are two possibilities, but even then, you need to be doing your research. That's because not all coins and tokens are created equal, nor are gold and silver bullion. The third step ties into the first two, and that's to keep informed about digital currency developments in your country or region. The number one thing to look out for is timelines. When will the fast payment system or CBDC be coming online? This will help with your hedging strategy, regardless of your goal. Realistically, if the BIS does succeed in rolling out a global unified ledger or some similar system, it's going to be very hard to escape it. Unless you plan on living in the woods, you're going to have to partake to some extent. And even if you do plan on living in the woods, you're probably not going to do it alone. That's why the fourth and most critical step is to keep others informed. If enough of us are aware of what's coming and enough of us hedge ourselves properly, there could be enough assets outside of the system for a parallel system to function. Without this parallel system, resistance will be impossible. Now, some would say that this parallel system exists already with cryptocurrency, but crypto is still far from being ready for mass adoption. The good news is that crypto has and will continue to develop faster than CBDCs. The bad news is that some cryptos aren't far off from CBDCs, so this development helps the BIS. I reckon the constant references to crypto terms in today's report has made that clear enough. Whatever happens, it's important to remember that as a system becomes more centralized, it becomes more unstable. Central banks have been addressing this instability with more centralization, which only results in more instability. The financial system will probably collapse before a global unified ledger is released. Some would say that this would be an even worse outcome. And to that, I say, worse outcome for who? It's clear the existing financial system isn't working for most people and that a new one is required. There's no way of knowing what this will look like, but it sure as hell won't be a global unified ledger. Well, that's all for today's video, folks. If you found it informative, let me know by smashing that like button. If you want to make sure you don't miss the next one, be sure to subscribe to the channel and ping that notification bell. Better yet, help keep others informed by sharing this video with the world.
All right. Right. Now you know why. What time is it? 10 p.m. on my work. Now you know why I've done this for 18 years. Now you know not why I know things 5 years before everyone else. Because I'm constantly paying attention. 25 years, and when government talks, you have to listen. When they say they're going to do something, they always say in advance, but just nobody listens. Nobody listens till a CBDC shows up to your door. And here's how they're going to run it. You know how we know? Biden said so. Biden, one of his speech, he said the biggest threat to America is America to the world. It's not a war, a nuclear war, he said. It's not a nuclear war. It's not pandemics. It's a cyber attack, he said. A cyber attack. So I would, most people miss that. I look at that, okay, why did he say that? He wouldn't go on a podium and say something like this unless it's coming. Unless it's coming. Then what happened this year in Canada? You missed it. You knew what happened. Miraculously, Rogers went down. Remember that? All day? Bank machines weren't working. You know, people know what was going on. So the bell was working, but Rogers went down. Not once, but twice. You know what that is? It's a test. That's all it is. It's a test. You know, so based on what Biden said, and based on a video, which I will play for you guys one of these days, the same BIS, Bank for International Settlement, which is the central bank for all central banks. Remember, the central bank of your country is a top bank, right? That dictates to all the other banks. The boss has a boss, which all the central banks of countries will answer to, is BIS. It's got Bank for International Settlement. This report came from them. The bosses, the bosses. So how there's a video of that, as a 10-minute clip of that on the internet, where they're talking. And we're talking about, in order to get forced adoption, remember, they talk about is forced. In order to get the forced adoption, before they get to forced adoption, they're going to launch it they even say when they're going to launch it. They're going to launch it on a Friday. All the bad stuff happens on Friday because people are distracted and they want time off or whatever, right? They're going to launch on Friday, and the whole transition happens on the weekend. So it's not like you're going to have lots of time to do this. And how it's going to happen is, most likely a cyber attack would hit your country and your bank machines will go down. There'll be chaos. Now, let's go back 15 years when Cyprus, it wasn't a cyber attack, but it's before the country was broke, so the bank machines shut down. Greece, same thing. They would limit. Happened in Nigeria a few months ago. They wanted to push the CBDC. They told people, bring in your Naira, and we give you new Naira. When people did that, they said, there's no new Naira. Don't worry though, download this app. There's a CBDC Naira you could use. Big chaos, because half of Nigeria don't even have a smartphone. And I'm told, good news, Nigeria has dropped that project after 3 or 4 months. Now, if that's true, it's because Nigeria's got 160 million people. And I guess if 80 million of them don't have a smartphone, like, people are literally starving. But if you're in a more developed country, most likely they will not stop because they know you have a smartphone. You know, so if you're in Western countries or Asia, no, I don't think you'd be that lucky because they know you have a phone, right? And they did nobody be dying from starvation. So their plan is, so Biden goes and says, hey, the biggest threat is what? A cyber attack. Okay, let's see when that happens. He's already announced that. We'll see what happens. Let's go through some of the notes I took. Hopefully you were doing the same thing as I was. So BIS is the one that runs the world banking. Without that, a country like Iran, for example, or like Russia, they can shut you out completely. They can shut you out from the global. So they don't care about 160 million people in Russia. You get shut out, right? So that's what they can do. Some of the things that really sat with me that's scary as hell. Tokenization of assets, including stocks and real estate. Now, I've watched 1,000 of these videos, by the way. This is not a new thing. Imagine your car, your home, your stocks all tokenized. And he said today what I've heard before, which is, if you don't have a physical deed for your home, one day you may wake up and you don't own that home. Where's your proof? Or worse, he talked about it here. What if there was a cyber attack? You know, there's cyber attacks right now, and then people lose, banks losing money, or crypto accounts being emptied. I became a victim of that. So what if this, I mean, you always constantly see governments get cyber attack. Sony, they got cyber attack. You know, there's all kinds of cyber. You know, U.S. government got constantly cyber attack. Recently, was a Canadian military got cyber attacked, and so cyber is the biggest thing right now. So, what if, you know, World Economic Forum has a video that concept is you will own nothing and be happy. So, what if there was a cyber attack and somehow all these assets were missing? Your house, your home, everything. And the government says, yeah, but don't worry, we're coming to help you. So, you know, here's some CBDC that he could live on. This is, if you get 1% of what's going on, you lose sleep over it. But most people, they just don't know what's going on until it's there. Like what happened to Nigeria a few months ago. So the tokenization of assets and stuff, that is scary as hell. In some countries, they already have that, which is everything's digital. You don't actually get a deed when you buy a house. It's all digital, scary as hell. If that's your country, you should go get it physically printed and get it notarized. The next scary thing, programmability, means it can be controlled. So CBDCs are programmable money. So it's not like right now you got a credit card, Visa, MasterCard, cash, you go buy what you want. Well, with the CBDC, you can't. If they decide that you want to go on vacation and the government says, you know what, you can't go on vacation like you do every year because the economy is weak, we're in recession, you need to spend your money inside your country. That's what it means. Or you, like me, you like to put stuff on social media, but you know, stuff that I don't like about the government. And you know what? I'm being shadow banned. I have lost about like 92% of my audience because they tell me, my family and friends, that we can't even see your stuff. And I see it in the views, and so I don't really care. I just do what I do because I just feel like if I have it inside, it has to get out, and for the good of the people. So, but what's going on in China? You know, when they had this real estate collapse in China a few months ago, people who were doing uprising, their app, which we have here in Canada, you have it in your country, is coming. Digital ID is coming in your country. It's already in effect. Digital ID is part of digital ID is part of CBDC. Could go together. And hey, you've been a bad boy. You've been posting, so you can't go to restaurants. You can't get on the bus. You can't go on the like. If you think that's ridiculous, it won't happen. Let me tell you, already in Canada, there's videos going on TikTok. People videoing this. Police are showing up. This is true though. Prime Minister's people. They're showing up to people's home for no other reason other than, oh, you did a post that now everything's based on hate speech. Maybe you just don't like your government. It's hate speech. The police will come to your house. Telling you. So far, they're not apprehending anybody, but they're there to harass you. That basically free speech is no longer free. It's that simple. It's happening in Canada. So a bunch of videos going around. People are videoing. Why are you here? Oh, because of the post you did on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook. It's coming too. Don't worry. The leaders of the world love this stuff. Anything that gives them more power and protects them from the junk that they do, they like. This censorship bill that we have in Canada, they have a worse version of it passed in the EU. That's entire Europe. They got the worst version of that in the EU passed already. It's already there. And not only for the people, now we see videos of people of the media. This is their job to share the news, being apprehended. Nothing, or no other reason other than sharing something that's going on in the war, but not what the government likes to show, the other side of it. And they're being apprehended. Journalists. Remember what I said, guys. You know what? This is not a sad thing. It is what it is. I always say, the minute you realize it's someone else's world, and you're just living in it, you don't get sad. You just get prepared, right? And our company, we are so well positioned. We're going to get to the good news in a minute, but I just want to make sure, maybe you didn't understand why I spent 2 years on $1 million on this technology. Now you understand why, as these things, dystopian things, get implemented in your country. Another thing it says, that crypto is trustless. It's true. You have your money. You can't scam anybody. You buy something from your wallet, it goes to their wallet without a bank overseeing anything. The minute you buy, it automatically leaves your wallet, automatically ends up on the other person's wallet, done without a bank or central bank or the government overseeing it. It's on a blockchain. It's a completely different, it's called trustless. But CBDC is exactly the opposite. It's where not only it's central, but they can stop you, debank you, whatever, freeze your account. Now you have to have permission of how to spend it. So basically, CBDCs there that if they see need to, for any reason, you're not, I mean, you're posting or, I don't know, you're demonstrating or, I don't know, whatever, any reason, they can stop you from using your money. Period. This is what CBDC is. It's coming to the neighborhood near you. So this is an interesting one. Of course, these rules are only good for the peasants like us. So they can't have one CBDC for everybody. So they have retail CBDC, peasants, us, population of the world, with all these restrictions. They decide, right, what those restrictions are. And then they call the wholesale CBDC. We might as well call it AKA elite CBDC, which is separate, different. Bill Gates of the world, they cannot be restricted like we are, right? So this is not going to affect them at all. They're the one deciding this. This is only for the peasants, the 7 billion people, the rest of us. So central bank will control all your assets. Scary as hell. Imagine this. How many of you guys have like investments in other countries, right? Other cities, other countries. So you go, you buy a home or land in another country. Right now, nobody knows about it. Your government doesn't know, but nobody knows about it. You know, you have investments in different parts. Only you know that. No one else knows that. But this global unified blockchain, all that ends. Because you have a digital ID. It's unique to you in the world. One search, everything you do around the world shows up. Everything. So if you owe taxes and CBDC is all your control anyways, right now they can't take your money. It's in the bank somewhere and the bank has no relationship or commitment to your country. CBDC is different though, because all the CBDCs of each currency will have to be on a main chain. And they now know everything you own everywhere. If they want it, they can take it. For sure, they're going to tax it. Because you might not know this. Most countries have this global income rule in the taxation. Canada has a US, and most countries have it. Now, a lot of countries don't really enforce it because they don't really know what you own outside. So if you have a house, there's a capital gain on it, you sold it for profit, your country wants a piece of that, right? But they don't know it, so they don't pursue it. There's no way for them to know it. Not anymore. Because now everything's tokenized, your assets are tokenized. So all your properties have an ID number, and that's attached to you. Do you see where this is going? So now maybe you know. Don't worry, we come to the good stuff in a minute. But now you know why I do what I do. Maybe you know a little bit of it. Because whatever affects you, affects the company, affects me, affects you. And there are always ways to monetize a hardship, catastrophe, disaster, which the elites always do. And there's always ways to get around obstacles if you're on top of your game, using the same programs that they're using. We'll get to that in a minute. All right. So they will control your assets. You cannot be paid in cash anymore, right? I mean, most countries I go to, including here in Canada, a lot of people want cash, right? Under the table. No more. There is no cash. So, you're taxed on everything. So, okay. It explains itself. This is the interesting one. You will be on a ledger, a global unified ledger. You and everything you do is in a global unified ledger. So I don't know. You decide to go to Vegas, play some games, you win some money, you come home, the government says, hey, you want some money? You owe taxes, pay me the tax. The opposite, you go to Vegas, you lose some money, you come home, the government say, hey, that was my money you just lost. You owe taxes. Why didn't you pay? And now they go after your assets because they figure you're not responsible to take care of your expenses. So I guess this is why the governments want it, because they don't have any of those capabilities right now. Well, if everything, every spending, every penny is on a one ledger, and every transaction is attached to an ID number, which is you and me, we're completely exposed. Completely exposed. Here's another thing. I was just looking, actually, I should do it. I should do the share screen on this. One thing that's going very popular, it's probably happening in your country too. Now that I say this, you're going to hear it a lot. Banks are debanking the people everywhere now. One day you get a letter, the bank says, for no reason, they don't explain anything. You get a letter saying that your mortgage, your credit cards, your bank account, your business account, everything's closed. That's it. That's it. It's happening. I know in TD Bank in Canada last year, they closed 2,000 businesses. We don't even know how many other normal people got debanked, but we know 2,000 businesses got debanked. And in the UK, I was just checking right now before this call, 1,000 accounts a day are closing. Debanked. They got debanked. This is not based on people wanting to close. They got closed. 1,000 accounts per day. People get debanked without knowing why. They don't give a reason. I know a whole bunch of people in Canada got debanked, and it's a disaster because all of a sudden you got his bills going through, you got employees, you got rent, you got this, you got that, and your money's coming in, your customers pay you. Next thing you know, the bank has got 30 days to find another bank. That's been happening. But right now, if you get debanked, then you can go to another bank, open up an account. But in the new world, there is no banks anymore you're dealing with, because central bank is the one now that controls everything. One bank, not in Canada, we got 5 major banks, we got some credit unions. In the US, they got 500 different banks. So you can just go to a different bank. But when one central bank to one blockchain, you can't even change banks. They know everything. Everything. Dystopian or what? We should look forward to a utopia. That's what's happening. So the video, and I've heard this in every video, is that the central banks will force you. Now, this is in the BIS report. He was just reading a report coming from the head mafia that controls everything, right? They will force you. Remember that. Force. It's coming. You're getting it. Cyber attacks can steal your assets. So that deed, all that car ownership that you have in your wallet or in your safe, everything's gone paperless. Now we have to rely on some blockchain to protect that from us and from the government who may want it. So one thing important, he said at the end, he says, one thing we can do is keep others informed. That's what we're having this call. That's why I've been talking to you about this for a long, long time. And we'll be spending a lot more time on forensic call here now Monday. Don't miss Monday's call. Something is happening with World Health Organization is even scarier than this, if it can be possible. And 194 nation states That's everybody, United Nations, 194 countries. That's your country, my country. They have a proposal now on their desk that they need to vote on. And then we're going to talk about that on Monday. Don't miss that. It is scary as hell. And they're trying to force nation states to agree on this treaty. If it's a treaty, that means it's there forever. It's not based on your president that changes. No, it's a treaty. That means it's there forever. No presidents can change it. But this is where you and I need to come in. I'm going to show you what that is, give you the video, then you're going to call your politician, local politician. You're going to say, no way on hell you're going to sign that document. So you're going to tell everybody to write an email, your politicians and everything else. This is the only way you can stop it from happening. But that's on Monday. Don't miss Monday. So when CBDCs are in, the very first people they're going to force is the companies, the businesses, because they're easy to do. I mean, there's less businesses than people, right? And people work for businesses. So very first people they're going to go after is businesses, all businesses, including Opulence, right? Will be forced to accept and to pay CBDC. That's what's going to happen everywhere. So whenever that is, we don't know. I know in Canada, their CBDC program is not as advanced yet as maybe some other countries, because some countries already implemented. Canada is on the way, though. They're going to start testing it next year. So when they test it, if it gets going, I don't know, year, 2 years, instant, I don't know what their plan is. But initially, it won't be, I'm assuming it will not be enforced. It will be like, okay, here's another way, fast payment system, try and see what happens about a year or so. And they're going to realize nobody wants it because people will reject that because everyone knows what CBDC is, or they'll know what the restrictions are. And that's when maybe the cyber attack comes, right? Now you don't have a choice. You have to download the app to access your money. Okay. So we don't know. What the thing that people have, which is good, we have 12 years ahead of the government, is that crypto started 2009 with Bitcoin. So there's a lot of technologies out there that could be that will become very popular, very, very popular. Things like gold and silver become very popular too. But the problem with gold and silver is you can't divide it. I mean, it's hard to use, right? It'd be popular, it'd go up in value, but it's not something you could carry. I mean, you can't go through the airport with it. If you want to leave your country, how do you carry that? It's good to have, but it's not your total answer. You need crypto, right? The problem with crypto, you can't tell the difference between what's called an S coin. I have to say the way so you understand. They call S coin means shit coin, right? I mean, some guy with an iMac in the bedroom came up with something that has zero use case. Nobody knows it, understands it. One said means zero value, and they try to say it's the next Bitcoin. And as of right now, there's 15,000 of those S coins out there. Well, of course, there's also some really good projects that I've invested for years, and those projects will continue to grow, and those become the competition to the CBDCs, which is governments are putting out. The issue with the other cryptos, other than Bitcoin, I think Bitcoin is good. It has volatility, but is that they're good projects, but it's very volatile, right? It's so out there. And then when they're out there, the banks come in and then they manipulate it, and just how the prices goes manipulated for sure. Right now, BlackRock has a proposal out to SEC for the very first Bitcoin, what do you call it there? ETF. So that means they're going to come into crypto, all these banks, and they're going to mess with it the way they do with stock market, gold, silver. So that's a challenge where when something is that volatile with value, how do you use that as your currency? I mean, with the fiat, it's not volatile, it's losing its value. It's going one direction. Maybe volatility is better, but at least, you don't have to worry about what it's worth today. So with crypto, because people shift back and forth a lot, there's a lot of traders, it's volatile. So it is the competition, it is the answer to CBDC, but it lacks characteristics to be money, to be currency, to be something you can count on every day. So this is where we come to the good news. What I've been working on for the last couple of years. Design a token. Exit. So what's my vision for exit? Now we're gonna do a lot of this talk on the 28th. Don't miss the 28th call. I've never had a call like this in our history. We're gonna talk about a lot of stuff. And tonight I want to talk so much about because this we have to save this for the 28th. Well, the 28th, you will be dazzled and jazzed what exit is and what it can be. And the only instrument that you will have that can give you and provide you financial freedom. The only. And it is completely detached from the banking system. We've done all the infrastructure, it's all done, and I just want to make sure people understand, because people in crypto, even my friends, they buy crypto because they look at it, it's an investment, maybe it'll go up in value, right? Look at Bitcoin, it's gone up 6.4. By the way, Bitcoin, even though it's down now, even at its current level, it's gone up 6.4 million% over its original launch price. So there's no asset in history of humankind, dinosaur kind, ever that's gone, even at this level, is up 6.4 million%. We started 18 years ago with our internal currency. I gotta tell you, what an ingenious, what a revolutionary concept that was back then, and it is today. It took us 18 years to realize its true use case, which is escape from tyranny, escape from dictatorship. How many of you, from whatever you are, what island you are, you use your shopping credit, your bank doesn't know, your government doesn't know, boom, press a button, shopping credit, Opulence currency, boom, shoes, watch arrive, FOL arrives. Without worrying about limitation that credit cards would put on, frozen, limitations, all that. It's gonna get so much worse too. So much worse too. When the CBDC comes on, your country may say, no, you can't shop anything from outside the country. They can do that because they want you to spend all that money inside the country. If you are in a small island and the government needs their taxes, and they know when you spend money outside the country, they don't get their taxes, what do you think they're going to do? And they rely on it. They rely on it. They're going to stop you from spending money outside. That's why you're all embracing CBDC, because it gives the government everything they've always wanted. Full control over you, your freedom, your spending, all of that. So we started 17, 18 years ago. The shopper credit system is done, I don't know, millions of transactions in the back office, 4 o'clock in the morning, boom, place an order, done, instant. He doesn't have to go to the bank or the credit card or anybody. Or Opulence currency, 3 o'clock in the morning, boom, one button, 10 people can get it. You can send it to other people. They can buy any country. Again, it's the reason why it works so magically is because you don't have to deal with a credit card company every time. So imagine trying to use a credit card to buy FOL or anything for 10 different people, different countries. On your second try, it'll freeze because Visa will think it's stolen or it's fraud, right? Aside from that, they charge you on every transaction. You pay 19 to 20% or more interest on every transaction. This it is insane. Every time you use your current financial instruments, the cost of all that. Not to mention the control of it. You're always at the mercy of whether they're going to accept this card or not. You never had to worry about that about shopping credit system. You never had to worry about the Opulence currency. Use it one time, you bought it, you use it for a whole year. And how much just the transaction fees alone? How much did you save on that? Just the fact that it's just a peace of mind knowing that you know your shopping credit and Opulence currency will go through. You'll do what you want. You can share it, send to everybody. So what we've done now, that system, we said, okay, we're going to bring it on the blockchain because that's an internal system. And now we're going to take it on the blockchain. So not just only Opulence people can use, the global community can use. Everybody on blockchain can use, which they say by end of next year be 1 billion people can use. 1 billion people can use. So we created a payment system that rivals the centralized ones like Visa and MasterCard, except this is decentralized, controlled by no one. But it's going to go to, this is how Exit will launch, which by itself is revolutionary, cutting edge. It is because it provides a bridge from $1 trillion of money, it's going to be 10 trillion soon, crypto money going into a channel, a bridge called Exit into physical goods, which is our products. We'll find a way to monetize that. That's that. So, but that's just the beginning. That's just the first step. That's just the first step. And when you do that through Exit, by the way, nobody knows, right? Nobody knows. Your government doesn't know. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Only you know. So you can take, say, your commission. Hey, listen, pay a portion of it into Exit. Keep it. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. You have it. You can use it when you want to buy products or just keep it. It's a utility token. We feel it's going to do well. We can't make those claims. But one thing is for sure, I'm going to share with you on the 28th what's happening with the world currencies and inflation. And you'll be shocked how badly your currency, your country is performing. And I basically took our countries that we do a lot of business in, in Kenya, Nigeria, and Israel, and Canada. And to show you guys how badly your currencies, according to these Forex charts, is doing compared to Canadian dollars, which again, another ingenious decision. This time I got to give myself a lot of credit on this. It was in 2006. I made an announcement to my shareholders. I think US dollar is going to collapse, and it's going to collapse. So we switched from US dollars into Canadian dollars. And now we'll take a look how every other currency is compared to Canadian dollars. That means you guys are in the profit for the past few years, because if I paid you in any other currency, including US dollars, they're deficient compared to Canadian. It's more stable than Canadian dollar is also crashing, but not as much as everybody else. Now, imagine if you had used your currency and bought some Opulence currency last year. In some of your markets, it'd be shocked. You will see the chart, you'd be shocked. In some of your markets, you would have saved 25% on buying our products. That's how much your currency has collapsed. In some markets, 80% collapsed on currency last year. That means instead of having that currency, if they had Opulence currency, that would be up. How many times? I mean, that'd be like 400% up. because your currencies are crashing, but Opulence currency doesn't. If your money was in the Opulence currency, it'd be safe, at least for what we want to use it for. Everything you buy from us will cost you so much less if it was in Opulence currency than not be in Opulence currency, because now it's costing you more because your currency is collapsing to buy our products. Any products, everything you buy in your country, it's not made in your country, it's made somewhere else. So it's imported in. So you're paying more because your currency is collapsing so hard. So whether it's Opulence products or any other Apple phone or whatever, it's the same thing. So my message moving forward is load up on Opulence currencies. Just load up on your own currencies, not the country's currencies. Because we don't do this. We don't do that. It doesn't lose its value. It doesn't lose value. We're going to do better than that now. We're going to have exit. And exit starts from payment system, which you buy stuff with. But it's going to go beyond that. Phase 2 of the exit, I won't say what it is. I will just tell you this. There's one word to describe second phase of exit, and that's freedom. For me as a CEO, it's a freedom for our company. It's freedom for you. It's protection. That's why I spent a year, $1 million into a project. So you don't understand a lot of the stuff I just said. You don't have to. One thing you do understand, though, what's coming to your country with the CBDC is a trap. What did he call it? He called it a digital jail, prison. That's coming, right? And exit is going to be your path to freedom to get around those restrictions. So anyways, let's look at the time. Now and a half. I don't think we've ever had this late. I've never gone this late on the call, but it was an important call. With that, I think let's go fearless hostess here. I think we also have some questions. So CBDC, CDBC. No, it's CBDC. Yeah, of course, central bank digital currency, of course. Okay. Our precious metal, gold, silver, etc., are going to be affected by the CBDC conversion. Well, look, if you have your gold, if real physical gold, it doesn't get affected. Other than, how do you use gold? Like, I mean, I have bullion. So how do you use that? Like, how do you shop with that? How do you go buy cigarettes or chips and drinks? I mean, yeah, it's good for as a property. I mean, I look at gold and silver like having a house, right? It will go up in value as your currencies collapse for sure. But what's the usability of it? How do you use that every day? How do you buy coffee with it? Right? So you have it as an investment, and you should have it. But that's not the answer. The answer has to be something that's divisible, and we can divide it. You can send it, shop with it, easy to use. And that's where the exit comes in. I won't talk about it. But phase 2 of exit. One word, freedom. All right, any comments? Any comments? Fearless hostess, maybe we can allow some people to ask questions if you want to share something, and we can do that. So I do have to leave soon, so maybe a couple of calls, a couple of messages, and that's it.
Yes, is there anyone out there who want to comment? Tonight we will really talk of what's going on. It's scary, but under his guidance, we are okay. Feel comfortable, but do what you have to do. Get our currency. Buy Opulence currency. That's your safeguard. Any word from anyone out there? Or you are stunned?
Everyone's stunned. Listen, guys, don't get scared. Look. it's something, okay. There is what he said. There's some countries, not unfortunately not the Western countries. They'll do it here. They'll do it in Europe for sure. Some countries, this might not fly, but that's what I love about this. Because I love about MLM, I love about Opulence, because I would say there's probably about 50 countries or more that would say I'm not interested in this. There's already some countries, by the way, who implemented, like Denmark and Nigeria. They said, no, we dropped the project. So they already dropped it. Now, whether they get forced into it later by IMF, we don't know. But I think there's going to be two sides of the world where you're going to have the Western world, Canada, US, Europe, all that stuff. They're going to say, force the people. Then you have all these other countries, they're not interested. And what I love about Opulence, take it and go. We can pay you anywhere. No one needs, although they're trying to put this global unified blockchain, I can guarantee you this is not on it. This is because we pay you in our own currency, in our own blockchain. So if I paid you in your country CBDC, it'll be on that. Say you say I want in pesos, I want it in Thai baht. Yeah, it will be on that. But if you say, no, pay me some on that so I can pay my bills, but the rest of it, I think I'll keep it in exit. It's not on that. No one knows about that. But I'll give you some good news. On my call on the 28th, everybody on, all your crypto people should be on that call, by the way, because that call, it's not a presentation for Opulence. I'll tell you about my vision of the future, and crypto is a big part of that talk. Go ahead, young lady. Close us up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate you and keeping us in the loop. It's very, very important. Shall I share my screen now to? Yes.
I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud
Thank
of
you. Thank you.